Hello and welcome to another interesting episode of Construction Week's Expert Interviews. As part of the series, we sit down virtually with industry experts to gain insight on several topics that are impacting the region's built environment. And for today's episode, we will be shifting focus to the Saudi Arabia market as well as the wave of cinema construction within the kingdom. And I'm joined by David Wallace, who spearheads the work for architectural firm Chapman Taylor across its leisure and hospitality sectors. Thank you very much for joining us today, David.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
So David, Chapman Taylor is, of course, working on Saudi Arabia's first homegrown brand, cinema brand, Muvi Cinemas. Now, could you tell me, let's view this COVID-19 lens. If you could tell me whether the company is on track to meet Muvi Cinemas' plan to have 20 cinemas opened across the kingdom by early 2021, despite the potential challenges.
Yeah, actually, Muvi are. They've been very active during this period. And sure, there's been hiccups with supply of materials and labour, and of course, COVID, people maybe, being infected perhaps. But regardless, they've bashed ahead. And almost for the last 2 months, they've been opening a new cinema almost weekly. And then we have another 6 to 8 projects going on site within the next couple of weeks. So I would say probably by the first quarter of 2021, they'll be very close, if not at their plan. So it's been very impressive.
Wonderful. That's always positive news. And how has the design approach changed? Now, what are the new pointers that you have in mind while now designing cinema projects for a post-COVID entertainment world?
Well, the immediate things are operational, of course, about contactless payment, how you manage queues, how you manage circulation, the seat spacing. When you go to cinema courses, you're sitting in every opposite seat for the social distancing. But I think specific things for design, now that we're designing in this world, circulation, I think. So where there might have previously been some pinch points, we'll also try and make these areas bigger to avoid those pinch points happening. Thinking about one-way systems is very important, and to avoid, lines of people having to have conflict or crossing over. That's very important. Touch points, whether it be door handles, automated doors would make a lot of sense. Automated taps and flush points would all make sense, which actually in Muvi in most cases already are installed. But it could be across the board perhaps more. So I would say that's the main things for social distancing, managing the queues, designing the circulation routes that are not crossing, and less touch points.
And David, of course, the alternative and perhaps temporary solution of a drive-in cinema concept gaining steam in the absence of its conventional counterpart. Now, how do you foresee the future of, say, physical cinemas, especially within the kingdom?
Yeah, it's interesting. Drive-in movies is something that I've been approached for many years, but 9 times out of 10 it doesn't really happen. And of course, then with COVID coming along and the closure of cinemas in Dubai, as you know, and all of a sudden people want to go to cinema, but they couldn't. So drive-in was a logical thing to happen. Of course, it happened in Mall of Emirates first, and then Mall of Dubai. And it's been very successful. And I think there's a certain romance about going to a drive-in movie, sitting in the car and eating your food and listening to the system through your radio. But it's a very different experience from going to a modern cinema, which in many cases is very hospitality focused. And of course, much bigger screen and more contained and immersive sound perhaps than you get in the drive-in. But I could see there being space for both. And I think now that people have built some modern drive-in movie theatres in the Middle East, people know how to do it. And I think there is a demand for it in addition to regular cinema. In fact, if anything, I think it supports it, regular cinema, because it just confirms that people want to go and see movies.
Now, let's take the focus away from COVID-19. And if you could tell me a bit about how the design approach differs across cinema types at movies. Because you have the junior cinemas, this luxury suites, experience cinema, and the ScreenX theater. So how do you ensure that the cinema design for each differs?
Yeah, good question. I think it starts very much from the very first sketch in that does this location need, one of those different brands? And generally you'll find, it's based on demographics and competition. So it's a very competitive location, of course. You want more bells and whistles in your cinema than your competitor. They're very different brands, though. I mean, if you start with the regular cinemas, regular cinemas are very nice. They're pitched at a certain price point. And even within a regular cinema, the back 3 or 4 rows, you can get a bigger seat. The sight lines are probably a bit better at the back than at the very front. People are prepared to pay for that. So that's good. Muvi have Muvi Junior, of course, for the kids, which seems very successful. And they have a play area, where the kids can all bounce about before they get to the movie. And even in the cinema itself, there's areas for them to bounce about. And there's a slide and things like that. ScreenX, I think, is very interesting. ScreenX is a concept from Korea. And essentially, the movie is projected onto 3 sides of the auditorium. So it is super immersive.
Saudi Arabia's need to diversify away from non-oil revenues has, of course, resulted in several giga projects. Now, what are you most looking forward to from the kingdom's ever-growing futuristic landscape?
I mean, it's a very ambitious aim, to achieve what they want to achieve by 2030. And without a doubt, they're going ahead on it. And we're fortunate to be invited to participate in quite a few of the large projects. And the ambition is always impressive. And as I say, it's going ahead. We see the contracts being placed now for infrastructure on the projects. We have a very large project in Jeddah at the airport, which concept design's finished. We're now going ahead for the approval process. And once it's approved, it's on to the next stage. It's a country that's really moving forward. And for sure, it's an ambitious target. The price of oil affects, of course, how money's spent. But regardless of all of that, we just see it going forward at the moment. So.
Great. Also, you mentioned the airport city in Jeddah, and that Chapman Taylor is, of course, working to develop this. Could you share with us further updates on the airport city?
An airport like Jeddah, there's a huge captured market there. So we're developing retail around this, we're developing residential, hotels around this. And the other important thing about the airport city is Jeddah as a city doesn't really have, let's say, the latest places for office rental or places like that, or conference facilities. So all of these are also being built into this. So it's kind of feeding 2 things. One is the pilgrims that are coming through Jeddah, but also the business community that's around Jeddah and giving them something they don't have yet in Jeddah. So it's a very interesting project. And it's a real mixed use project. At the centre of it's pedestrianised. It's all, the centre of it is the connection from the airport into the train station, of course, to get to Medina in Mecca. So it's a fascinating project, and it's a very specific project to Saudi, of course, I guess.
Great. I wish you all the luck with all of your projects, of course, David, and to Chapman Taylor as well. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. It was lovely having you today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that was all for this episode. We will be back very soon with another guest and another interesting discussion. Until then, like, share, comment, and subscribe to Construction Week's YouTube channel for more such interviews. Thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.